Hello, and welcome to the first Core Motives webinar powered by Silverpop, Behavior Rules, giving today's savvy buyers what they want, fresh ideas for Microsoft Dynamics marketers. We are pleased to be joined today by Ellen Valentine and Dave Walters, product strategist for Silverpop, and Rhett Thompson, co-founder of Core Motives. Today we will share key insights on how delivering tailored marketing messages based on what your buyers are telling you can make a big impact on revenue. We'll also share tips and techniques for keeping an eye on buyer behavior and then using that knowledge to enhance your campaigns. Before I turn it over to Rhett, here's just a few reminders. If you would like to tweet along with us today, please use the hashtag MSDYNCRM. There should be time available at the end for Q&A. Please chat any questions you would like to ask to the host. And finally, the full presentation will be sent to you early next week. With that, I'll turn things over to you, Rhett.
Okay, great. Thanks. Hi, everyone. This is Rhett Thompson, co-founder of Core Motives, and I'm very excited to be with each of you today, and also our great panelists that are going to give us some really good information on how to be a better marketer. So we're super excited that Core Motives has joined forces with Silverpop, and being a founder of Core Motives, we've enjoyed the last 3 years of growing the business and watching how the Microsoft channel has really benefited from the power of marketing automation. And since we are being joined by Silverpop, then we've got a great opportunity to really take this to the next level, and that's what I'm most excited about today.
Good. So I'm Ellen Valentine. I'm really excited to be here with you today. And you see here on the cover, myself, Dave, and Rhett, we are all active tweeters, so feel free to join up in our Twitter stream. I'm at Ellen Valentine. Dave is @_Dave Walters, and Rhett Thompson is @RU. We've also got a hashtag today if you want to join in on the conversation, and you are a tweeter yourself. You can use the hashtag MSDYNCRM. And if you all, hopefully you're all hearing us, but if you're just looking at the slides, there's the call-in number to support you. So just to kind of start things off, I think that as marketers, we so easily get wrapped up in lists, and we start thinking of our buyers and our potential clients and our customers as our partners as basically just a name, an address, and an email, and things kind of get impersonal that way. But that's kind of the nature of the way things have evolved. We start thinking of things as a list or just a typed name. And during this call, I thought we would just really start to think about things a little bit more holistically, a little bit more organically. And so I thought I'd just sort of go through a little scenario here. You don't know much about Joan when you look at this information, but I love to go to the beach, and every February I go and spend a week at the beach with my parents, and I love looking at all the footprints in the sand. And I think you can tell a lot about someone's behavior by looking at the footprints in the sand. So if you look at the picture on the left there, you see we've got somebody who's running, and I can tell that based on their behavior or their gait. I also know that they're running with a dog. And I can tell from the size of the footprints that this is actually a female. So now we've got a much more complete picture of Joan and who she is by looking at her behavior. So as you begin doing behavioral marketing and looking at how you can bring the power of behavioral marketing to your marketing efforts, think about Joan running on the beach, and think about how you can perhaps capture some digital footprints in the sand and begin to use those effectively in your program. And now I'm going to turn it over to my partner Dave here so that he can really talk about what's starting to happen really behind the scenes as marketers.
Great, thanks, Ellen. So this is kind of an ominous picture, but against the same kind of backdrop, as we think about marketers and reaching people and knowing more about people, as Ellen mentioned, we started out in a traditional direct marketing world where it was a person and we had a message and we wanted to send it to kind of everybody in equal ways. So today there is someone not quite this ominous on the other end of our conversation, But more than likely, this is what we would refer to as a silent surfer. So this is someone who is interacting with our brand. We probably see them in Google Analytics or some type of web tracking thing that tells us what pages they went to, but we really don't know a whole lot about them. So certainly technology is coming that will allow us to begin to understand some things behaviorally about these users. So, you know, again, this scary-looking guy, we know that he's visited the website, specifically the blog, may have interacted with us via Twitter. There could have been banner ads or solution pages. All these things and all these actions that an individual is taking, and we have all these measurement channels stitching these together, but we don't really know yet who this person is. So when we talk about kind of tipping that balance from the anonymous user to someone we know who we would all call a named person, so that's really where this entire kind of content strategy comes to play, right at this very moment in time. So we've now delivered a series of value to someone. They've come once, maybe twice, maybe multiple times over multiple weeks, and they've interacted with our brand. They've found what we're delivering to be of value to them. It's helping them do their job better. And now they see a piece of content like a white paper, and they sign up to receive that white paper. So at that moment in time, we're able to now, via that gating process, and when that user gives us their username and email address at that moment in time, we're now able to stitch that through together to a real person. So now it's not anonymous user, you know, whatever the 32-character GUID would be. It's now John, and we can deal with John as a named person in our database. So then we know John, as he continues to interact with our video clips, and he does all these things over time. So now that we've kind of taken him through the hand raise, we now understand all these things and can drive John to the point where we know he's watching multiple videos, he's interacting with more and more of our content, and he's now requested a 30-day trial. So here's kind of a graphical depiction of how that process might work. It might be a little bit easier to follow for some folks. So you see in the top left there is your traditional blog or social streams. So what you find is people moving from those as they're interested in specific topics we deliver. They move into a registration tier, and we'll talk some more about using other tools to power social sign-in. Once they sign up, then we can easily generate an email to follow up on that sign-up. And then as we move kind of from a batch and blast to a more behavior-driven world, what we now challenge ourselves with is a series of emails that are dependent to people on what they do. So you'll notice that initial email has a picture of an iPad. The next tier down to your bottom right would be the helicopter or the iPad. So now we would characterize those as different user actions. So a user may have raised their hand and said that they like toys over electronics. And then the consideration goes even deeper yet as we start to go down these paths. So all these types of behavioral generated database programs are actually giving folks kind of another layer and another layer of the onion that they're interested in. So the beauty of embracing it like this is we're always deepening the conversation with that specific named person about what they want to hear from us. So let me have Ellen walk us through a little bit of the trajectory about how to move from that kind of batch and blast marketer all the way through a more sophisticated behavior view of the world.
Good, thanks, Dave. This is, I think, where you all need to kind of take back some action items. I think this is what I'm going to show you here is a really good roadmap to get you from where you are today to increase your marketing sophistication over time, and hopefully with that increased sophistication, you will get improved response rates and increasingly more sophisticated levels of engagement. So Dave did talk about really things starting with mass mailing or to a broad database. So that's eBlast. And if you all were sitting in front of me and I asked a question and said, you know, how many of you all are doing eBlast today? I would hope and probably assume that every single one of you would be raising your hands. Every single one of you are doing eBlasts. They still have a role. Let's just say you've done a seminar of some kind, and you've got a list from the trade show company, then yes, probably you are going to send out that first mail after the seminar. You're going to send that out as an e-blast. But what you want to do over time is merge them in and market to them in a more custom fashion. So the next level of sophistication is what we call segment and send. This is where you start to segment your audience and do more targeted mailings. So you might segment your list by title, let's say. You might send all of your C-level executives one piece of mail, and then you would send maybe your technology buyers another piece of mail. So you're segmenting your list, you're getting a little bit more sophisticated based on their title or their roles or their geography, number of employees. There's all different ways that you can segment your list, and this is definitely the next level of sophistication. You probably will see a nice bump in response rates by tailoring your mail piece, tailoring your content based on your segmentation list, your segmented list. And then at this point, you're going to cross the line from manual to automated, and this is a big step for a lot of folks, but it's one that you absolutely need to be setting goals for and moving toward because you can really get some really nice returns. So the first level of automated mail is what we would call time-based messages. These are drip, you also can call them drip or simple nurture. So an example of that would be, let's just say that you have a list of people that have come to your website, but they're not qualified, they're not ready to buy yet. So every 2 weeks, you want to send them some piece of mail. And we actually do this at SilverPop. If you come to the SilverPop website and you sign up for our newsletter, twice a month, we are sending out a newsletter to everyone that is subscribe to the newsletter. So that's an example of a time-based message or a drip, simple nurture. And the nice thing about this is that you change your workflow a little bit. Back down at the mass mailing level, what you do there is you prepare your mailing, you prepare your list, and you send something out. And then you repeat that over and over. Prepare your mailing, prepare your list, send it out. With time-based messages, you actually can prepare 3 or 4 or 5 pieces of mail, your email content. You can prepare the templates, you can prepare the content, and you put them in an automated workflow so that you can basically set it up one time, and you can forget it for 3 or 4 or 5 months, however long your chain of emails will go that you've set up. So it's a different workflow, but it's one that's highly efficient. So that's the next level. And then the next level after that is what we call behavior-based messages or multi-track messages. So an example of this would be if I was a technology company and I had software available on a trial basis, and I wanted to look to see, I would actually have it set up so that the system would look to see, did you use part A of the software, or did you use part B, or did you use both parts of the software? And then in the automated workflow, you would have rules assigned to say, if they did not use part A in their usage history, then send them a piece of mail that says, hey, part A has some great features and some great benefits. Please take advantage of that. So the rules would route the appropriate message to the client based on their usage. Another completely different example is if you have a seminar of some sort and you have folks that attend and you have folks that did not attend. You obviously want to send 2 different pieces of mail based on their behavior, and their behavior is attendance. So that's another example. I'll give you another example is, let's say you are selling tickets to a concert or a sporting event. You could have a different piece of mail going to people whether they actually attended or not. Did they submit a ticket at the front gate or not? Because maybe that same band or that same group is coming back again in 6 weeks. So you want to market to the attendees versus the non-attendees differently. And then the holy grail here is what we call brand to one. And what that is actually incorporating so many rules, so many different pieces of dynamic content, so many levels of personalization that if you look out over, literally 1,000 pieces of mail, nobody's getting the same message because everyone's message is so highly tailored and personalized that everyone's looks different. And I'm going to share an example with you about that later on in the webinar. So broadcast to behavior, this is your roadmap. You can even print this out when you get the slides and put this in your workstation area to give you some goals to move toward more sophisticated levels of marketing. So what do you have really at your disposal to get to this brand to one? And Dave sort of touched on this a minute ago, website behavior. You absolutely can market to someone based on whether they clicked on something, whether they played an audio message, whether they watched a video on your website. All sorts of websites behavior can go into these automated individualized messages. Also email, and Dave's going to talk all about all the ways you can incorporate email behavior into your marketing. And then everybody can move along at their own individual timing. So I think that's important too. Obviously, demographics comes into play. If you are not, for instance, if you do not have the capacity or the ability to manage any kind of a client in South Africa, then maybe you want to omit that geography from any sort of communication. So that's another thing that you can incorporate. And then obviously there's a ton of external data like product data, shopping cart data, registration lists, customer service lists. All of those things can be incorporated into your communication with your clients and your prospective clients. So that's kind of an overview. Dave's going to walk through now sort of some more detail on each of these things. So Dave, let's talk about some of the basics.
Okay, so really we'll talk fundamentally about the way that you might create the rules here, and let's think about this in kind of developing degrees of depth. So certainly easy to think about email behaviors as it relates to an interaction and someone actually consuming your content. So you could look at things, you see here it's opened or did not open, which is the behavior. You can certainly layer time in there within certain amounts of time. So there are really two key measures in the email world, obviously opens and clicks. So we can look at variables like open and click against time and be able to have a pretty good understanding of what someone is doing and whether or not they're interested in what future content we might play to them that would help them down the buying chain. In the same sense, I talked at the beginning about website behaviors. So certainly we can talk about specific web pages, and I think the interesting thing here with web pages is we probably should think most aggressively about landing pages. So we have the ability to kind of construct all kinds of unique pages at the edge of a website that would be perfectly designed. We can do very smart things like test ones against each other to see what message resonates most clearly with someone who shows interest from a Google keyword search or from a piece of our content, wherever the case may be. So we have all these data points that, again, allow us to think about actions by the user and what it means to where they are in the process. We can even extend that to downloading files or watching videos. Important to recognize as well that those interactions can live outside our own world. So we certainly would want to know if someone clicked in from a referring URL that was Twitter. So if someone were clicking on a URL from Twitter twice a week, certainly we would look at them and say that they were very much engaged with our brand, not just kind of on our little sandbox, but off in the social world. So we would be looking to further develop the relationship with that type of customer. And again, lay time over all those items. I want to touch on the last one here as well, external databases. And when I say databases, I really mean kind of data elements. So there are all types of content that we have today at different places in our organization. If you're an e-commerce retailer, that might be cart data. If you're a content provider, that might be the number of white papers you downloaded. If you're a seminar company, as Ellen mentioned, it might be attendance. So you certainly can take all those elements. Again, activating a product is a great example. If you're a software company and you're doing a free trial, there's certainly a way that you would capture, if you're running a software company where, at a 30-day free trial, and you knew that there was a scenario if someone used the product more than 10 times in that 30 days, that there was a 3 times more likely chance that they would purchase the product, you would want to provide a series of messages to folks to make sure that they got to that level of usage and that level of activation. The last one here is probably a little bit of an outlier. You'll see the final one there is all relatively standard things that we can measure, and then we say, and is a New York Jets fan. So let's take 1 second to talk about some of the more psychographic variables that are available to us as digital marketers. So we can certainly think, and going back to Ellen's initial slide about the name and the address and someone's email, you can certainly extrapolate a fair amount about someone. You can attach all these behaviors over time, and again, you can start to develop a deeper and deeper picture. There is a level, and as we rise to that kind of B2one type marketing, where you now have the ability to survey your customers, or if you have a very aggressive customer support function, they might be talking to a customer, and they may gather a piece of data during a conversation that you could layer into your CRM system that would allow you to understand someone's preference. Now, every day, is that going to be something that you can just check a box and make it part of a behavioral campaign? Probably not. But as you gather these interests and activities and opinions, we really talk a lot with marketers about really unique ways for them to use that type of data at a very critical moment in time to really kind of set the stage and show the customer that you're listening to who they are and aggregating information and providing data to them that is extra customized for them.
Yeah, and Rhett, isn't the New York Jets, aren't they a CoreMotive customer?
Yeah, they are. We're really excited about the Jets, and we actually have several sports teams like the New Jersey Devils as well, and they use our product in some amazing ways.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think we're all going to be watching the New York Jets this fall with a new light of Tim Tebow, and also the new light of the fact that they're using CoreMotive to do their marketing. I think that's so cool. So let's talk here for a minute about where can you use all these behaviors, because, collecting all that data and getting it integrated into your system is one thing, but, what you really want to do is you want to use that information. So you can use that information, obviously, to send more tailored and more refined and more targeted mail. And the mail can either be email or it can be postal mail as well. That can integrate it in with your marketing channels. Telemarketing, obviously, if someone's exhibiting a certain set of behaviors, then maybe you want to have an inside sales group pick up the phone and place a phone call. And then you also can send an alert to someone. So let's just say you've got, a bunch of behavior going on your website, repeated behavior by one of your prospects. You might want to alert the sales manager that there is a very active customer out on your website and they deserve some special attention. The other thing you can do is you collect this behavior. You can obviously do a lot of queries, and you can get very sophisticated with your queries. You can create lists to do some extra things in marketing with your behavioral data. You can route, behavioral data to different groups, and then obviously you can display it. So, if you have a rep that is suddenly going to get involved, it would be super helpful if that rep knew, the 5 or 6 things they did on your website, the videos they've watched, the white papers that they've read. That way the rep can have a super informed conversation when they're first interacting with that prospective client for the first time. And then you can also use behaviors in automated workflow, and that's what I really talked about before, is that you can route people down one particular channel if they've used your software in one way versus another channel if they've used the software in another way. So that's where those decision diamonds come into gear, into play for you, is really automating the workflow based on different behaviors. So I found this psychedelic chick out on the website, and I had to use her because that's my way of really saying that you're only limited by your imagination. So, and it also has to be in your database. So you can get super creative, but if you don't have the data, the behavioral data, then you can't go to market if you've got it in your database. So, come up with some cool ideas of things that you can do. It's just, for instance, if, you have available seats at the last minute for a sporting event, you could go out to people that regularly buy last-minute tickets and offer these empty seats to someone. So, you just would have to capture the fact that someone's been a repeat customer, capture the fact that that seat is not yet sold, and you can offer last-minute seats to someone. So, that's a pretty creative idea. It's just a matter of you coming up with those concepts and running with it.
That's a great example, Ellen. I was actually just talking with a customer the other day, and this kind of really blew my mind, but they quoted a number to me that about 92% of their email volume is actually completely triggered by user actions. So they're a very large company that does bill paying services, and they have gone to the kind of exhaustive process of documenting what they know all their customers' user actions are over time and what those actions mean to stickiness to the service. So it's a subscription service, and they know that if a user comes in, signs up for an account, and then adds 2 bills, that they're 80% probable to stay. They know if they can get them to add 5 bills, they're 87% likely to stay. And if they can get them to pay 1 bill, that doubles their stickiness rate. So this type of entire thinking around how is a user taking the things that I do and how is it changing their life, and then mapping that out in a behavioral way. Certainly, it sounds daunting for all of us, but as I have conversations with marketers all the time, it's important to remember that it sounds hard, but it's more front-loaded effort. So it really makes you stand back and think about how your customer uses your product or service. But once you do that, once that system is built, then that frees up the kind of churning and mashing of a batch and blast effort where everybody's always messing with lists and trying to come up with the right template. It really allows you to think more deeply about the content you're delivering and who you're delivering it to.
Yeah, and we talked about the workflows changing. So, it's hard. Dave's example was a great one. It may be challenging on the front end. You've got to really persevere and collect the data and get the insight. But then the back end, once you have everything set up, the back end really happens automatically. So you're out of the day-to-day grind of preparing lists and sending things out. Your workflow completely changes. And oh, by the way, it can become so much more successful. So I wanted to go through a cool example here. This is actually Air New Zealand, and this entire email series is very personalized, and it's very dynamic. So you see there the flight attendant, that's actually Helen, and in the mail actually says, "I will see you on the flight. I am your flight attendant." So they have dynamic content there. They have a database of all the different flight attendants, and they pull in the flight attendant assigned to Flight 0038 at the time that they send the email. They also send, obviously, the flight details. They even include the 5-day weather forecast for where they're going. So highly personalized, based on their behavior of booking that flight and their time frames, their individual personalized time frames. If you look at that email strip along the right-hand side, you see the entire email. Well, look at all those pink blocks that we have. every single one of those pink blocks are dynamic content that is inserted at send time. So there's very, very little content that stays the same. It's all changes based on when the flight is, who the flight attendant is, where they're going, and what the weather is going to be. So these are things you can absolutely do. It's not looking at clicks on a website is intensively, it's really just looking at what they purchased and tailoring a specific piece of mail based on all those things about that purchase. I wanted to tell you a really fun story, and I think that for behavioral marketing, the large B2C retailers really lead the way in really figuring out behavioral marketing. And so I wanted to tell you about this because I think that it could give you a big source of inspiration. And it's the story of Andrew Pohl and Target. Andrew is actually an employee at Target. And if you want to read this entire story, you can go out to that link right there. This was a story that was in the New York Times. So you can do nyti.ms/y5l3i4, or you could literally just go to Google and Google Andrew Pohl, Target, New York Times, and you would pull up this article. It was in the New York Times probably about 6 weeks ago. And what the story is that Target really wanted to understand and really start building a relationship with women who were pregnant before they had their baby, so that they could build brand loyalty with that woman, so that by the time she had her baby, every time that woman needed diapers, every time that family needed formula, they needed any baby supplies, that family, their go-to choice was Target. So what they did is they did a lot of analysis to figure out what were women that had recently found out they were pregnant, what were they buying, and what were they buying well in advance of buying diapers and bottles. So they did the analysis and found out that there were certain kinds of vitamins they were buying, there were certain kinds of lotions that they were buying. They really developed a profile of a pregnant woman. And they started sending to the home, they started sending direct mail pieces about specials for baby products. And they actually had a father come in and very upset and asked to speak with the Target store manager and said, "Why are you sending all of this information on baby products to my household? My daughter is 16 years old and we don't have any babies in our household." And the store manager apologized profusely. And, they moved on, but about 2 weeks later, that same father came in and said, "Well, I want to apologize for being so frantic with you and being so angry with you. It turns out that my daughter actually is pregnant, and I didn't even know it." So it's a classic story of behavioral marketing, and what Target learned from that is that maybe they don't need to be so 100% concentrated in sending the baby information to the house. Maybe they needed to mix that in with other household products to make it a more subtle experience. So I just wanted to leave that story with you just to challenge you to look at what's the behavioral profile of your customers before they actually become customers. Really, do some investigative analysis to figure out how are they interacting with your website, what pieces of content are they consuming, what are they looking at on your site, how are they searching, and if you can build up a profile and say, you know what, most of the time when folks are, before they buy, they've already watched our 2 videos, they've downloaded 3 white papers. Suddenly you've got a really good behavioral profile and you can market to them in a very specific way. We've done some research here at Silverpop. This is business-to-business research that says that behavioral triggered campaigns perform 325% better than simple blast campaigns. And I think we all would love to have a 325% improvement in our marketing campaigns. So there you go. There's your carrot out in front of you. Do what you can to push the behavioral marketing envelope in your marketing efforts, and you too could receive some phenomenal benefits. So here, we're just getting ready to wrap up, so be thinking about questions you'd like to ask. We're going to open up the lines here in a few minutes for questions, so if you do have any questions, we'd love to hear what they are, so get ready to queue up for those. But before we do that, I want to go through a behavioral marketing action plan. So the first thing on the list, document your overall program or campaign goals. What are you really trying to achieve here? I see a lot of folks kind of jumping in and starting to design email, and they haven't really thought about the big picture and their overall goals. The first thing that you need to do on your system is you need to implement web tracking. So get the web tracking installed. That way you can really evaluate all your customers' website behavior. And then look at all the data sources that are available to you within your company and outside of your company and see which ones make sense to incorporate into your marketing plan. And you want to do that integration. Maybe it's a batch integration, or maybe it is an online integration between perhaps your Core Motives product and your external databases. So I think it's important to have sort of a roadmap or a plan for that. And then set up other fields. You know, we talked about the is a New York Jets fan and how it really takes time to build that data into that specialty field. So think about what other fields you might want to capture and get everybody in the company on board. Even the receptionist can ask, hey, you know, are you a New York Jets fan? You know, and if you are, then the receptionist could even start populating that data for you. Then you want to design automated campaigns that use the behavior data. And I can't emphasize enough the importance of reporting and analysis. It really is key for you to interpret the data and really work at improving over time. So don't forget this important step. And then for our last slide here, the last prepared slide we have today, there really is a lot of power in CRM and behavioral marketing. I'll speak for myself, my colleagues here, Dave and Rhett. We really enjoyed being with you here this afternoon or this morning, depending upon which time zone you're calling in from. We do offer a very comprehensive platform here for doing all kinds of very cool things with marketing, everything from location-based marketing. We didn't really talk a lot about integrating social into your marketing efforts, but if that's something that you have a need to do, please feel free to reach out to us after this call, and we'd be happy to chat with you further about that. Obviously, we do things like lead management, advanced segmentation, campaign measurement, and program automation. So, again, we've enjoyed this time here. What we'll do now is we'll open up the line for questions and see if anybody has anything they'd like to talk about.
Yeah, so, Ellen, we had one of the first questions that came through was if you guys had any best practice advice for behavioral marketing.
Ooh, that's a good point. There's so many best practices out there, and things are really changing all the time. So, you know, best practices is almost a study that we all need to keep up with. And I'm gonna get out of this PowerPoint here to show you a couple of things. First, what I would do is I would suggest going to the silverpop.com website, and if you go here in the middle to resources, and you can go down to the blog. We are very super active bloggers, and we really blog more about industry trends and key concepts. So, you know, here's an article that was just published this week by our colleague Lauren McDonald. Is your QR code landing page mobile and context friendly? So, you know, there's examples of, you know, best practices and QR codes. He's got all kinds of good information in here. Up here we had a guest speaker on delivering business results via social media. So that's one place I would definitely bookmark and come back to. If you go to the Silverpop website, we also have available to you in the resources section best practices for marketing excellence and operational efficiency. This is a hefty ebook for you, and it goes through landing pages, email best practices, dynamic content, personalization, all sorts of things, the whole spectrum of marketing automation. And so you can feel free to go to the Silverpop website and download this ebook. I think you'll get tons of ideas here. We have foundational practices, kind of like good, better, best. We have that in this guide, so you'll have lots of things there and tips and things that you can take away.
And I I would really recommend to folks that to think about the concept of best practices, particularly if you're a relatively new to CRM or email marketing in general. Think about best practices, again, as a layered concept. So don't try to boil the ocean, particularly if you're the typical small marketing group who's already signed up for a bunch of campaigns. You're at kind of 85% of your bandwidth and can't do a lot more. Think about small ways to improve your existing campaigns and work toward those best practices. If you go out and read a lot of the best practices stuff, it just turns into this really dense view of the world that you just have to throw everything out and start all over again. There are plenty of ways that we as marketers could improve the performance of our campaigns by 4, 5, 10, 15% that will make a very real difference to your bottom line of your business.
Yeah, in fact, I think Brian Brown, one of our other colleagues, had a blog post on 15 ways you can get a quick win with marketing automation. That's out on the SilverPop blog site. That's another good area where you can go and look. So there you go, best practices, all kinds of ideas.
Great, and I think there's a ton of information that you guys have shared, and so much of it so that people have asked, there's a couple people who are asking if we do workflow training. So I think, Rhett, that would...
Sure, I can talk about that, right. So we recently did a little 30-minute quick advanced training session on triggered workflows. So you can find that recorded out on CoreMotives.com or on CoreMotivesTraining.com. There's a section under Advanced Training. Go there. You'll be able to watch that video immediately. And another way, if you want to talk about workflow training, that can get pretty deep. You can get into parallel wait conditions and a lot of different things going on at once. We can do a custom engagement with you as well. So if you're interested in something like that, shoot me an email, and I can get you connected where we can put the right kind of training in front of you.
And if they wanted to contact you about that, how would they do that?
Right. They can just email me at rhett.thompson@coremotives.com.
rhett.thompson@coremotives.com.
That's right.
There we go. Okay.
Great. And then finally, for people who are looking to go ahead and get started implementing some of these great ideas, which reports are companies using to review their customer data?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think that reporting takes many forms, and it could be in terms of like a management style report where you've got a lot of pie graphs and bar graphs, things like that, or if you go down into a much more specific level, you could get into a sort of a marketing list build report where you might be building that list in an iterative fashion with advanced find queries of maybe adding or removing people based on behaviors or did not behaviors, things like that. But I think that one of the most popular things we're seeing and having a lot of luck with our product is the dashboarding feature in CRM 2011. The dashboards are relatively easy to put together. We have many different kinds. We also have an advanced training class on dashboards. You can go out and watch that if you want to get a little bit of an idea of how an email marketing dashboard can look, where maybe you're taking an example of the top 5 campaigns within the last 30 days that are driving link-click engagement, and then you can drill down all the way into people. So the dashboard feature is really excellent for viewing reports in a very interactive way. A couple of other points along this line is that we do offer some SSRS reports for those of you that really work in the Microsoft world heavily there. If you go to CoreMotivesTraining.com, you can get a good RDL file for email marketing, and you can take that file, plug it in, use it straight away, or you can have one of your more technical people edit that report to include some more data, more relevant data for your organization. And so I'd say that those are the things that really come to mind first.
Great, thank you so much for that. So I think we're just about out of time. If you guys have additional questions, I encourage you to reach out to our speakers. You can see their Twitter handles are still up on the screen right now, along with their names, if you want to reach out and do any follow-up contact. We hope that you enjoyed today's webinar. If you'd like more information about any future webinars or to access recording from any previous webinars, please visit us at silverpop.com. You can also access slides from Silverpop presentations on social media and tons of other topics at slideshare.net/silverpop. And you can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. We thank you guys so much for joining us today, and you'll receive a copy of the presentation early next week. I think Rhett.
Yeah, just one more thing is that a lot of times people have quick questions, and just remember that you can write to support@coremotives.com, and that's a great place, simple to remember. We'll answer your questions there and point you in the right direction if we don't have the answer immediately. So it's simply support@coremotives.com.
All right, great. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time.